Hello and welcome to the Top Floor, the podcast where Charlotte area CEOs get to tell their leadership journey. My name is Jeff Cass. I'm an executive coach and the leader of a peer advisory group for CEOs and business leaders here in Charlotte, and I'll be your host today. Happy to have a second generation entrepreneur who also happens to lead four different businesses with us today. Stefan Joens is with us. Stefan, welcome to the show.
Jeff, thanks for having me on the show. It was good to get to know you a little bit here before the podcast started, and super excited to help your audience get to know, the community a little bit here. We're new to Charlotte, so super excited to make an impact.
Yeah, great, great. So the main company you're leading is Elnik Systems, right? So you and I talked a little bit. Uh, you took over for your dad with this business, and you also moved it from New Jersey to North Carolina here recently. So maybe just tell us a little bit of the background.
Yeah, lot of stuff in that story, so we'll try to consolidate it down as best we can. So Elnik is actually what's called an industrial furnace maker. We work in a really niche industry where basically we sell equipment to companies who make metal parts. So anybody who wears a pair of Ray-Bans or Oakleys or has had dental brackets on their teeth or shoots guns or flies planes or has their knees and their hips replaced or has fashion, has people in their lives that have fashion products like Louis Vuitton bags or special watches or anything like that. Anything that's a metal part that hasn't been machined, but rather molded or 3D printed nowadays, that's what this furnace technology is used for. So super niche, but a huge impact, across the whole world. And it's really fun to be able to step back sometimes and take a look at that impact we have in the world, working with some of the largest organizations across the globe. And we've never been more than 45 people as an organization. Originally started this company. My dad started it 55 years ago up in New Jersey. Um, moved himself through this entrepreneurial journey. And, what started out as like a little electrical company who made electrical devices now makes these industrial furnaces that are, positioned all over the globe, helping people really transform people's lives, which is really cool. I've been in and out of the business since I was a kid. At 14, funny story, actually, my dad told myself and his other three daughters, he said, I will put the other half on the table of whatever you put on the table for your first car. All girls didn't put any money on the table. They might have put $1,000 or something like that if they had that saved up. And then me, the youngest, came around and he's like, maybe I'll get through this without having to spend any money. And I worked my ass off and put $8,000 on the table for half of a Mustang, which was my first car. So I worked
Oh,
really hard through the business and, learned every little thing that I could. And all the guys at the company really took me under their wing, which I'm grateful for. And I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later when it comes to leadership. So yeah, I worked myself through the business, worked in finance for a little bit, and then came back to the company here when I was 27 years old. And it's been a journey and it's been a lot of fun. And the move down to Charlotte, which we'll unpack a little bit later, had a lot to do with just growth and, giving people on the team also in the company a better future by helping to lower costs and get into a more manufacturing friendly state.
I see. I see. Okay. Yeah. I think a lot of people are moving from kind of the Northeast down here. It's a lot, personally, it's less expensive. From a business point of view, it's less expensive. But let's
Yeah.
talk about your dad first. So he came here from Germany, you told me, right?
Mhm.
And was this something that, was an idea that he had, or how did that idea kind of start with?
Yeah, great question. And me and him talk about this all the time. And he loves talking about it because he actually moved over here in 1962, which everybody that ever lived in the 60s and was like in their teens or 20s, they love talking about it, right? It was the greatest time in American history. Everything was cool. Everything was easy. You didn't have to worry about locking your doors. It was an easy lifestyle over here. So he was 21 when he moved over here, ended up going to the University of Minnesota for school. And at that time, the reason for the move over here was that was the time of the Cold War in Europe. And a lot of families that either ran businesses or had a little bit of money saved up were investing outside the country. So they found a organization in Minnesota involved in the technical world and so forth that they invested a little bit of money in. So they sent my dad, being the youngest, over to the United States to not just study here, but also look after the family investment, so to speak, right? So he got involved with that company when he was in school, and really helped to kind of work through that business and help them grow in what they're doing. And then in 1969 is when he actually started Elnick as an offshoot of what his parents' business was. And it all really started from him being an employee at a company and doing a really good job helping to promote the business, bring money in, help the revenue of the company grow. And he wasn't being recognized for that, flat fixed pay per month, no recognition for all the money that he helped this company grow. And he said, I got to take my life in my own hands. I got to go be the entrepreneur that I know that I can be, but he just didn't have, all the strength and let's say, I don't want to say strength. That's not right. He didn't know exactly where he wanted to take it or how to make it all work, but he knew that he believed in himself. And that's the
Mhm.
truth of a good entrepreneur. And the truth of a good leader is they might not have all the answers, but they're still ready to jump in the pool, right? They're still ready to go jump in and they have confidence in themselves to figure it out along the way.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of the way he was. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So for you, you said you went off and did a few other things, came back, I think, at 27. So why come back? Why, what brought you back?
It's kind of a couple things. So I had a lot of friends growing up that when I left the family business and went into the finance industry as a financial planner, which I thought was my future, I really liked the way that that business model worked. They all kind of looked at me and they're like, "What are you doing, man? You got a family operation. Why aren't you working there?" Like everybody goes back to the family business. So
Hmm.
while that might have been like a 5% of the pressure kind of scenario, it was more along the lines of when I was working through finance, while I loved working with individual people, one of the paths I wanted to take was within their leadership and management role. And as I was looking to get into that, they completely changed the way people get compensated. They completely changed the way you lead your teams. And it just, for a short stint during the time that I would have been going into it, I really, really didn't like the way that that structure was working. So I said, let me go back into the business that I'm, trying to grow for myself here within just the personal planning. And I started to lose interest in the an analytical finance side of things. While I love money and I love numbers and I love all those kinds of things, I like to make things more. So I
Hmm.
started to have this draw to want to go back and make things and do that kind of stuff. So I left the business in '07, sat with my dad and I was like, "Hey, is there an opportunity to come back? What do you think?" So we created a role for myself within the organization, which was basically like a customer liaison. There was nobody like the customer service rep role. There were service technicians and stuff, but that speaking voice between both parties was a role that was created. And then similar to the way my dad kind of jumped into this business, I jumped into all these different roles within the company before I really knew what to do.
Hmm.
Right. Like I took over our shipping department because we were having all these issues and I fixed the systems. I built better systems and I built better, paperwork trails and the way that's supposed to work. And we had a field service manager who left and went to California with his wife who took a job out there. We kept him on board as a technician because he was really good and he was our senior technician, but we didn't have a person ready to take on the management of the team. And the
Hmm.
people that were in the department, while super good technically, weren't the greatest people leaders. So I would just put my hand up. I was like, I can do this, right? I know people. I wanted to get involved in management. I don't know how to troubleshoot the equipment. I'll
Hmm.
learn that along the way if I need to help, but I know people. And every single time I moved myself through this organization, even into the seat that I'm in right now, running the organization, was yes, I'll do this, but I know that I don't know everything yet. But I will figure this out along the way because I believe in me. And I saw my dad do a lot of this as I was growing up. So it was kind of inspiration that you can do it even if you don't know all the answers yet.
Okay, okay, that's cool. Is your dad still involved in the business today?
I mean, he contributes a little bit here and there, but for the most part, I'd say he's retired.
Oh,
I
okay.
still working to try to help him find a couple of hobbies, but he's I think for 50 years of him um just pouring everything he has into this, a couple of years of rest is good. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, he deserves
Yeah.
it. So is the family still in New Jersey and you came down here, or did they come down here with you?
Yeah, they still live up there. I have a sister that lives up in New Jersey too. She's been in the animal industry for a long time. She started with a walking service, then she got involved in a grooming industry, then she got involved in training, and now she basically with a girl that was also a trainer in New Jersey, they combined efforts and they're like completely dominating the Northeast area from dog training, and they're training people on their training methods and all that stuff, and they've done a really great job. So another it actually makes me a little emotional to think about it, but just an incredible, symbol of entrepreneurship and running after something that you have a lot of passion around. So she's
Okay,
up there. She has probably like 3 or 4 different four-legged children running around,
okay,
which my parents love too. So they're all living up in New Jersey. I'm down here. I think eventually what'll happen, and as long as my parents want to, they'll probably get an apartment down here and do the back and forth because my sister's probably locked into what she's doing up there. Although she should come down here because man, there's a lot of dogs down in Charlotte.
oh man, it's a dog-friendly town, no doubt about
It's
it. Yeah,
incredible.
yeah. So, talk a little bit about. I want to talk about the four businesses, but first, I want to talk a little bit about this move. Talk about why, right, and then how it went, because moving a business is not necessarily an easy task.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the biggest reason for the why was in 2018 and 2019, there was an industry that started to pick up a little bit, and that's called metal 3D printing. And metal 3D printing, just like metal injection molding, uses metal powder and it's held together with some kind of binding agent, whether it's plastic or some other kind of polymer that they print down onto the powder to form this piece. So in the injection molding side of the world, we've just made an incredible name for ourselves. We are the best at what we do for the type of equipment that's there, and we are the benchmark for really what the industry wants. So as this new industry came in with similar needs from a equipment technology perspective, we just did a really good job of getting ourselves in front of every one of the right people, and we really started to grow. So we went from like 9 million to 19 million in 3 years,
Mm.
and completely outgrew our space within the place that we had in New Jersey. We were in a 20,000 square foot building, 15-foot ceilings, and all we wanted was 25-foot ceilings and, at least double the space. So we
Hmm.
were looking within New Jersey, and we either were going to get a second building, which means now I have to pay people to transport stuff between buildings. So that's, to me, a waste of money, right?
Yep.
While I love employing people, I'd rather employ them to learn to do cool shit versus just drive a car back and forth.
Yep.
Um, so we said, okay, either second building or we're going to have to get a bigger building. And if we go with a bigger building, it's minimum 30 minutes away from where we are currently in New Jersey, and it's south of where we are. That was the best location. So that means people are going to have to think about, because most of the people live northeast and northwest of where the operation of the business was, to go even further south, they would have to think about moving.
Hmm.
So I said,
Hmm.
okay, well, if that's the case, let me think about a third option to bring to the table. And I said, well, what about PA or New York? Right? It's close. People don't have to move that far, and it's lower cost of living. So my drive went from the business needs a bigger location and we need to be able to grow into that location. And that's always the objective, to moving directly to thinking about my team. And all I thought about was, okay, well, what would be a better move for them? What about New Hampshire? What about Maine? What about Virginia? What about Carolinas? What about Florida? So I cruised up and down the entire coast, and I looked at all these different locations and tried to figure out a place that makes the business obviously have a good future potential, but what's the right thing for the people on the team? Because
Hmm.
I'm a big believer in, you're nothing without the people that are inside your building. I mean, yeah, as an individual, if you have a single person business, it's still within you. But if you want to grow a company with people, they're everything. If they're not respected, taken care of, led, trained, educated, how are we helping anything really go forward as an organization? And who are we in the fiber of who we are as a company? So I poured everything I could into the people side, and I used Charlotte as a location to kind of use as a hub and then go to a few times. And every time I came back here, I was like, man, it's not as hilly as New Jersey, but it's just as green. It's lower cost of living. There's a great amount of people moving here, meaning it gives you this diversity of cultures and people and food and everything like that. I just felt so comfortable here. And one of the things about New Jersey that many people kind of have the wrong vision on is everybody thinks New Jersey is like Newark, the beach, or Trenton. Yet most of New Jersey is green, and it's the Garden State is what it's called. And when you drive around here, you don't know when you're going from one town to the next town. And that's the same feeling we had in New Jersey. So I had this same feel. So I pitched it all to the team. I said, we can do two building strategy. We can get a bigger building, or we can move. I have ideas what I'd like to do, but what do you guys want to do? And I
Hmm.
literally put it in the hands of the whole team that if we have enough people that want to do this, we're going to move forward with relocating the organization. And we
Hmm.
got 21 out of 40 people to move over 600 miles with us. And we kept another quarter of the team on board remotely working in New Jersey.
Oh, wow. So that's so really you only have to hire a quarter of the workforce back once you got down here. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's significant. I mean, that's 21 people, half of your people moving down here, following the company. I mean, sometimes it's hard to get people to move across the city, let alone into another state.
Yeah. And like I said, for me, it was everything. What is the right decision for the people? So as I was coming down here and driving around, looking at, not just buildings for the company, but most people when they go to a new location, they look for homes, right? You would think I would go drive around and be like, oh, I want to live in this house. I want to live in this house. I still haven't found my house or even the area I want to live in. I drove around being like, well, I could see Danny living over here. I could see,
Mhm.
Kyle living in this location. I could see Claudia living in this area because I think it meets what she wants to have. So every part of my intention was for the people on my team. And I think
Mhm.
they really know and they feel that. And it comes out when I speak, and it comes out when you come into this building and you get a feel for what we're doing around here. We have a real family environment. I don't care how big we get. I'm going to know everybody's name. I'm going to know everybody's family name. I'm going to know their dog's name. I'm going to know when their kids, just hit a home run this weekend at a baseball game,
Mm-hmm.
because I care
Mm-hmm.
about them so much, because they're everything for me.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Okay. So the move, you would say, is successful, or is it too early to say?
Oh, I would say it's definitely successful. It took 10 trucks to move down here. I initially thought it was going to be 3 or 4.
Okay.
Um, a lot of lessons learned along the process. Initially, when we went to a logistics company to help us move down, they quoted us like, I don't know, $250,000 to move everything. And I'm like, that just seems really expensive. Like, I'm going to do all the boxing and packaging, and you're just going to put it on a truck and move it. Like, let's figure
Mm-hmm.
this out. So we ended up not working with a logistics company. We just hired our own trucks through relationships, because we move equipment all the time. We got a good, flat rate for a flat truck to go down here every time. So we did that 10 times. Um, Half the team kind of moved down, the rest of the half stayed in New Jersey, and we kind of moved them down over time, because we still finished equipment in New Jersey and started equipment down here. So running 2 operations for a little while was what we were doing. And it was interesting and stressful, and um, all the things you could possibly imagine for. So now that we're down here, it's been officially a full year. We don't have any operations going on in New Jersey anymore. So I would say it's wildly successful in terms of being down here. We've hired some people back to the team. There's some areas that we're still struggling to find the right people, but we're very picky about who we want to bring into our fold, because we're
Mm-hmm.
big believers in culture is everything, right? If you don't have a good culture within your organization, one person can ruin that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when we interview people, I have one question I love to ask. And I know if I'm involved in the interview, but I've coached my team to figure this out too. There's one question we ask in the opening of every interview that we know whether this person's going to be on the team or not. So, Jeff, you've probably heard this before. Most people's favorite question to open an interview is, tell me about yourself,
Sure. Yep.
right? So what you're looking for really is for that person just to kind of loosen up a little bit, right? That's the objective. And they can tell you a story and you learn a couple things about that. What I like to do is to flip that a little bit and say, tell me something amazing about yourself.
Mm.
And the reason I add that amazing about yourself is, what I'm looking for is, how does the person see themselves? Because if you know how somebody sees themselves, you know whether they hold confidence or they lack confidence, whether they're
Mm-hmm.
more family oriented, whether they're more work oriented, or maybe they like sports or something. You can learn so much within 5 minutes of that question being answered. Body language, how could they be a person that could be in front of another customer or on a video explaining something, or no, they're not that kind of person. So you
Mm-hmm.
know everything you need to know about how you're going to coach them, how you're going to lead them, what their shortcomings are. And here's the important thing, right? If they're family oriented and you're trying to lead somebody about a task or about a mission or about a project you're working on, if you can tie it back to family for them, now you're hitting their personal need versus just talking loosely. And you're
Mm-hmm.
hitting them where it means most to them. So there's so much you learn about the way people answer that question that we're particular. If they don't answer that question right, we'll end an interview right after that question.
Mm. Interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's good. I mean, it sounds like, from a people point of view, that's been successful, and that's part of the challenge is kind of, getting some of the folks to come down here. Now, I assume that your connection with the people you serve, your customers, is just as strong. How did the move affect them, or didn't it? I mean, were you able to kind of manage, both operations so that you didn't miss any service or deliveries or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say we had about a 4-week total delay in equipment shipment.
Mm,
Spare parts for the most part have been going pretty good. There's been a couple of issues, but it's more still off of leftover stuff from the supply chain issues that are going on, still throughout the world and the country.
mm-hmm,
Um, the delay that we had coming down here is we were a little bit delayed in terms of when we could have put power onto the equipment that we had. And then we bought some new equipment. That was the other real drive of coming down here, is we were able to invest in 3 new pieces of equipment, where if we stayed in New Jersey, I was only going to be able to invest in 1, because the rental rates are wildly different between down here and up there
mm,
per
okay.
square foot. So there was a piece of equipment that's pretty critical for us. It turns rings. It's called a vertical turret lathe. That piece of equipment really struggled to get online. There's a lot of equipment issues that, luckily and good, for the supplier and the vendor, they really supported us, but it took a while to get that thing up and running. So that pushed some deliveries out. There were a couple companies that, they griped a little bit about it, but we always do what we can to find ways to support customers. We have a separate business called DSH Technologies, which is like a service and not spare parts, but service and process engineering and process education side. And there we have equipment that we've made so that people can come and use it. So for some of those customers that were a little delayed, we just offered them time on the furnaces at DSH so they could get some parts out and still support their customer base. So we've kind of built an organization that we can find every single way to help you. And if there's something that we did wrong in one area, we'll find another way to make it up in another, part of the business or an offering that we can do for you.
Okay. Okay. All right. So Elnik is the business you moved. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other businesses. So you did mention one there, right? I mean, so that you're involved with 4 different businesses. So if you would talk about those.
Yeah. So Elnik was the original company. And then in 1999, so 25 years ago, my dad and the guy right now who's running DSH, he, in the middle of his time with us, kind of left and went into industry for a little bit. But he started that organization with my dad back in 1999 as a way to, as we got involved in this injection molding world, there was a knowledge and a need for education around the process. Because everybody came in, they're like, well, we want the equipment to do this. We want the equipment to do this and so forth. And my dad's like, listen, I went into this whole thing because I want to standardize equipment. So I'm going to make one, I'm going to put it in my plant, and I'm going to show you how it works. And now it's just a matter of how big do you want this thing to be based on the volume of parts you have. So this business started out as a way to demonstrate the equipment, and it's grown into access to equipment. So you don't have to spend money on the capital, investment and the expense around all that and the infrastructure. And the biggest part of what's grown is the education side, right? So we kind of talked about it a little bit in the earlier part of the call here, but it's one thing to have a really good piece of equipment like an oven at home, or, in our industry, a furnace for the metal part making industry. It's another thing to know how to use it from a process perspective, right? So how do you develop recipes? How do you, if for some reason the cake comes out of the oven and it's not as fluffy as you want it to be, who do you call? Right? Do you go into Google? Do you go to YouTube? In our case, if parts aren't coming out of the oven the way you want to, we're a team that you can call that will dig into the science side of it too. Okay, maybe we didn't hold long enough at this temperature, so all the plastic didn't come out and you have a chemistry issue. Or we didn't go high enough in temperature, so the parts aren't as dense as they need to, or we used the wrong gas, or really analyzing the process side to it to help the customer get so good at what they're doing that they're growing their business and they're going to come back for furnace 2, furnace 3, furnace 4. My dad had an old famous saying when he was working with people in sales role. He said, I'm not happy until I've sold you 5 furnaces. Because once I've done that, I know I've helped you grow your business.
Okay. Okay.
And that comes through process. That comes through education and so forth. So that was business 2. Elnik has a really big footprint over in Europe. And in 2017, we realized that there's a need to have a presence over there. So we opened an operation. There's 4 teammates over there, 2 service technicians, 2 office teammates. We have spare parts. We also have a furnace over there that people in that market directly can use because they can drive to it, bring parts, do some experiments and so forth. And that's really both that organization and DSH gives companies the reason to say, let me rephrase it a little bit. I'm a big believer in proof is in the pudding, right? I can tell you all day long why our furnace is the best. The industry can tell you all day long why the furnace is the best, but give me all the parts you want to process. I'll put them in the furnace, let the parts come back. You do the analysis and you tell me whether they're the best. And then go to the other competitors and ask them to do the same thing. And most of them can't.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
huge part of a marketing and sales branch of that organization. So we saw a need. There was a unique European market that they got a little tired of. It's just after lunchtime and we're just getting up and coming to work kind of thing, right? So we developed an organization over there. And then a 4th business I run, it is a one-man operation right now. It's a wood shop. I've always been a woodworker. My dad taught me how to woodwork when I was a kid, and then a really good buddy of mine, his dad was an incredible craftsman. He ran an HVAC business, but at home, he had one of the coolest wood shops I've ever seen. So this dude made like cabinets and, all kinds of high-end finished woodworking. So every time I went to go hang out with my buddy Tim, I would hang out with his dad way more than I would hang out with him. So I learned a lot growing up. So woodworking's always just been a little fun hobby for mine. I look at it as therapy. And back in 2020, when everybody found this extra time in their lives because of COVID and stuff, I just started making products. And it started out as wooden flags, actually. I saw a couple flags online. I was like, I want to make one of these things. So I basically, it's either pine or cedar. And I, started cutting all these things, and I saw people beveling edges. Then I saw people burning the wood and staining it right. And it's just turned into this super high end, piece of artwork that I've seen and sold to a lot of my friends in their workplaces, and they hang them proudly where they are. And I've built tables and shadow boxes and storefront signs, anything that I can do where I have the time and the equipment to do it. It's just another little business that I use for my own sanity, but
Yeah.
we put out some pretty cool product.
Okay. So it's more of a hobby almost than a business, but it is still a business.
Yeah, I mean, it's got an LLC and it's run like a business and so forth. And luckily during COVID, I think everybody, not during COVID, but during the move, everybody kind of realized I had a lot of stuff on my plate. So I didn't get that many orders during that time, thankfully. So everything's good. But I've had a couple of interesting projects come in. I just built myself a really cool 2-stage cocktail table on wheels
Mm.
that rolls around. It's all made of a really nice white ash wood. So it's cool. It's fun.
Yeah, fun. That's cool. Yeah. So you're juggling a lot of things, and I think, managing time sometimes is one of the biggest challenges for executives. Maybe talk about that. How has that evolved for you over time?
Oh, dude, time management. Time management is huge. You know what's the most amazing thing is the amount of time we all waste in a day. And I don't think anybody really understands. I mean, grab your phone and look at your social media time, and you'd be
Hmm.
shocked by how much time everybody spends on that.
Right.
I've been a big believer in calendars and schedules. I'm a big, set week schedule kind of things. I was just looking down at my calendar over here, and every single day of the week, I have a certain amount of things that I preset to do every day. So because I lead the organization in a few different organizations, I need to always be reviewing financials. I need to be reviewing the marketing because that's also part of what I do within the organization right now. So on Mondays and Fridays, the first hour of my day is reviewing the financials and the information that I need to see whether there's any adjustments, changes, or work that needs to be completed there. Tuesdays, I spend time doing marketing for an hour and a half. So it could be future flyers that I'm building, future campaigns that we're putting together, different, reaching out to customers, putting things together there. On Wednesdays is typically my sales follow-up. So every Wednesday I have a set thing of things that I do. And if for some reason I get through my list that I have for that day and I still have 45 minutes left, I just found 45 minutes. So I move something up from my calendar into that time and I
Mm.
move through that. So I'm a big believer in using your calendar. The other thing that really helped my time management, and I don't know whether you've ever heard of this before. Have you ever heard of a program called 75 Hard?
75 hard. No, I haven't.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit earlier about another business development group that I'm involved in called Arte, and one of the leaders of Arte is Andy Frisella. And Andy Frisella, back in 2019, 2020, I forget exactly when it started, but he started a program called 75 Hard. And some people look at it as a fitness challenge. It's not even close to that. It is literally a rewiring program for your brain. And what it is there's 5 tasks you have to do every single day. The first one is follow a diet. And there's no preset diet. Are you trying to gain weight, lose weight, eat healthy, follow some kind of diet? No alcohol, no cheat meals, though. Those are the key factors, right? So
Mhm.
no Sunday, splurging on food, no alcohol.
No
The
ice
second
cream?
one is, say again,
No ice cream?
no ice cream.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Now you can switch that up and go do like some kind of protein-based homemade ice cream that's a little bit healthier if that's the plan, or if you're doing macro counting. I mean,
Mhm.
if generally ice cream's not really good for you, it doesn't have a lot of nutritional value.
Right.
But if you're doing macro counting, you can eat some things that some people would consider to be maybe not the right thing to do. But the idea is just follow some kind of diet, right?
Okay.
The
Okay.
second one is 2 workouts a day, 45 minutes each.
Wow.
One has to be outside,
Okay.
irregardless of what's going on outside. And not like under the awning or with the garage door open, like outside.
Okay.
The third one is drink a gallon of water a day. The fourth one is read 10 pages in some form of personal development book or educational book. And then the final one is take a progress picture of
Mm.
yourself every single day. And through that program, the first time I've done it 3 times now, and I'm trying to do it every single year. It's just I I'm actually sounding like a kind of like a baby right now. But the first time I did it, I traveled to 5 different countries in 6 different states. And this year I'm sitting like, man, I got this travel coming up and that travel coming up. Like I'm going to do it at this time. So
Mhm.
it's kind of crazy for me to sit here and bitch about it right now. But um, it's an incredible program. What it made me realize is because you have to do all these things, you have to get good at presetting what you need to do throughout your day. And because it's like you're sitting there at 8:30 or 9 o'clock or 9:30 and you're like, shit, I still have to get an outside workout in. Most people would just sit there on their phone for a half hour, 45 minutes. I put on my weight vest, I would go outside, I would do my walk. So
Mhm.
by doing that program, it really helped me understand how much time I'm wasting. so that when I'm wasting time now, I'm like, nope, go do something. You have way more important things to do than where you're at. So just a couple of things I've done over my life, scheduling and a calendar, and that program's been huge.
But have a system, right? I think that's kind of what one of the things I would take away from this, because a lot of people don't. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and I've certainly had this in my career. When you're running a business, everybody wants a piece of you. They're all, and if you're a calendar person, they're always trying to get on your calendar, right?
Mhm.
So how do you manage that? Do you allow open access to anyone for your calendar, or how do you manage, those pulls and tugs that you get from many different people?
That's a great question. And each company runs a little different, right? Depending on the number of people you have and the way that you run your operation. For me, I don't do scheduling into my calendar. I will either take it or not take it if I have something else going on. But I have enough open spaces in the calendar where I let people set meetings if they want to. But for me, what I really have is I have an open door policy. So if people do need my time, they can come in and they can talk to me. But it's prefaced with what do we need to talk about right now and how much time do you anticipate we need to talk? Right.
Mm,
So what I'm doing is I'm building in the question to the people to be respectful of not just the time that they're asking of me, but for them to start thinking about how much time does it take. So I'm starting to get them to think about time.
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
and how important it is, because how many people in an organization run a meeting and they just put it on the calendar for an hour because that's what the default is for most meetings is 1 hour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the actual context of what you're talking about is 15 to 20 minutes.
Yep.
So I tell everybody right now, and going back to systems, set your meeting for 20 minutes. If it goes over 20 minutes, ask yourself why. What's
Yeah.
the reason it's going? Are we fluffing around? Are we starting the meeting 5 minutes late? Are people showing up late? So this gets everybody back to some kind of structure and system, and so to speak. Um, I would say I'm not the greatest at telling people to walk away, but I've gotten a lot better at telling people, hey, have you run this by your manager or your leader first? Have you run this by HR first? You can, I don't want people to feel like I'm not here for them. I'm definitely a different style CEO and president of a company. But what I'm trying to do is get people to understand schedules and how good the use of a schedule and a calendar is by asking them to understand the amount of time it's going to take.
Yeah. Okay. That's good advice. Really good advice. Okay. So let's switch gears here a little bit. Outside of the move, what's some of the toughest challenges you have in the business today?
Well, I think for any company, one of the hardest challenges is as an owner and leader and a creator of a company is to figure out how to get people to get to your level of passion and energy, right? So it's the people side to it. I don't think any company runs that doesn't have people challenges. So understanding people, understanding how to, I think the biggest challenge for me is I have a certain way about myself, as I've described a little bit in the beginning, of how much I care about my team and the people that are here. Not everybody in leadership roles has that same level of care. They all understand the basics and the standards we're trying to hold, but it doesn't always come out that way. People deliver things differently, right? So some of the biggest challenges when intention is right, but delivery is not done right.
Mm,
That's where things kind of go off the rails sometimes. So trying to teach people about those kinds of approaches and understanding how communication can drastically impact how the end result works from a people perspective. Um, we're having a little bit of challenge down here in the Charlotte area from an engineering hiring perspective. There's 2 engineering roles that we've had open for a little while. There's been 2 people that accepted the role. One of them said he's moving to Illinois. The other one basically ghosted us for a week, came back and said he took another job after accepting the job. And it's just like, that's thank you for showing me who you really are now, right?
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
again, we're picky. We want to make sure we have the right people. We have an engineering team, and then there's me and our operations manager. So some projects have just required us to get a little bit more involved. So kind of muscling that through.
Yep.
Um, the other challenges running a business, especially in the manufacturing world, is just the consistent inconsistencies within the supply chain. There are still random problems. There are still every 30 days, there's a price increase in product, right? So 5, 10 years ago, you could understand a price of a product was something like that for like about a year, right? Maybe a year and a half. But now it's like, if you haven't bought it in 30 days, you got to go back because the pricing of everything, it's almost to a point where people are doing it just because they'd be programmed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
In other cases, the material costs are still going up, but it's the material suppliers that are doing it. So at some point, it has to be some kind of give to it, but I don't know. I don't have the answer for it, where it really is going to come from and when it's going to do. I mean, personally, as an organization over the last 4 years, we've helped customers in some ways where I'll give an extra % off a piece of equipment or not increase price if it's only a 1 or 2% change in my cost of the material, because I'm not trying to make the customer's life that much harder, right? It might
Mhm.
not have helped us as much, but it's the right thing to do to grow, a business and grow a relationship with a company that we're trying to work with.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, the people issues I think are endless. Finding the right folks, hiring. I think those would all kind of be at the top of the list for most folks today. And inflation as well, right? I mean, when is it going to stop? How's it going to stop? I think those are all key things that most businesses are dealing with.
Yeah.
So as you think about all that, what are your aspirations for Elnick over the next 5 years?
Uh, I mean, we went from 10 million to 19 million, 9 million to 19 million, from 19 to 22,
Mm,
2019 to 2022. My goal to have this business running is in a $30 million range. That's going to be a big jump, since right now, this year, things actually went in the other direction, just because manufacturing, the capital equipment world has slowed down. Like, if people don't buy more Ray-Bans, or they don't get as many operations or buy as many guns, that hurts capital equipment guys. And the people who make parts, if they slowed down, I got to wait for them to pick up before I pick up. So capital equipment is always a longer kind
mm,
of swing in the swings of the way the economy works and so forth. So we didn't, nobody really anticipates when slowdowns are going to come that much, but it's allowed us to actually reinvest time into the building and the systems that we're trying to put in place here. So sometimes guys are like, "Oh man, we're getting slow. What are we going to do?" It's like, we're going to get better. Is what we're going to do,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Because once the business picks back up, which I think 2025 is going to be really good in the manufacturing world, regardless, I think, of which president or administration kind of takes lead, um, we're gonna be able to come out flying and running with much better systems than we had when we moved down here, right?
yeah,
So I'm a believer in, if you found time, going back to this whole calendar schedule and what do you do to manage your time? If you just found new time, there's two types of people in the world. There's those that will sit back and relax, and there's those that will take advantage and move forward, right? I'm a move forward kind of guy. I'm a guy on a Friday. My favorite quote on a Friday is, "Champions create distance on Fridays."
mm,
Because most people that run organizations have checked out on Thursday. They're not doing much on Friday, and they're already thinking about the weekend. So if you take Friday, and even Saturday, if you can and want to, and your industry requires it, if you take that extra day, you just gained 50 days on your competition.
yeah, yeah.
Who
That's a
wouldn't
good one.
want 50 extra days of time to dominate their competition, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard that quote before. Champions create distance on Fridays, but it's true. And I think a lot of people have put it different ways, but that's a great philosophy.
Yeah.
So I've heard a lot of things, Stefan, from you that I feel like you like, but what do you enjoy most about your job today?
That's a really great question. There's two things I really love about what we're doing and what I get to do here. One is when I step back and take a look at the impact that my dad has created with the company that he started, Elnick, and getting involved in this industry of making furnaces to help companies. When I step back, I had a tour probably about 6 years ago for a powder metal manufacturing plant in Pennsylvania. So taking scrap metal, liquefying it, and pouring it into something that blasts it with really cold gas to make little pellets of metal out of it. Sitting there and watching these people work in a huge 3-story building. It's super hot. They're basically wearing spacesuits because there's freaking powder flying around all over the place.
Hmm.
Sitting there and watching what these people are doing every single day to give companies an opportunity, that we're a piece of the puzzle, that give people at the end of the day something improving in their life, whether it's a medical operation, somebody puts on their pair of Ray-Bans, dude, half the people that put them on, they feel like they're a fighter jet pilot, right? It's part of the reason people buy Ray-Bans sometimes, because that's an aspiration of what they want to have. So to step back and to know that we have a small piece of bringing joy to people's life is amazing to me. I absolutely love that.
Okay,
The
okay.
other side, the thing that I love the most, and as we just said before, the hardest part of the business is the people. The best thing about my role is the ability to help make a difference in people's lives. So coming down here, we've been here for a year. Half the team's been here for probably 7 months. The rest of the team's been here for a full year. Some of the people on the team have already bought homes down here, right? So
Mm,
we made a move down here for the company to be better, but for the people's lives to be better, to see people actually do the things that we set out to do, to change their lives, to have an actual home that they own for their families, for the kids to grow up in. It just warms my heart, man. It
yeah,
absolutely warms me up and gets me going every single day. It's another reason why I got to be here, be the best version of myself, is because I got to take care of all these people's lives. I might not have kids of my own, but I have kids that are out there in the shop. And I got
Okay.
people's lives that I got to look after. And while it's the hardest and most stressful part of my job, it's the thing that keeps me going every single day.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. That's very satisfying, no doubt. Especially with the people that feel like you're very close to. I mean, half of your employees move down here. It is a lower cost of living, lower taxes. I hear a lot of people talk about that. Taxes are
Yeah.
dramatically different down here than they were in New Jersey, and the cost of living generally is substantially lower as well, right? So that's has been a
That's
big
about
factor.
a 20% drop.
20% drop for everybody.
Yeah, it was 20 to 30, but it's gotten a little bit pricier down here, but also it has also in Jersey. So when we initially looked, it was between 20 and 30%, depending on what category you're looking at.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So a little bit different kind of question. So you were talking about your dad a lot, and I think of mentors as being an important part, of development of just about anybody. Maybe talk about, your mentors that were most impactful for you, if it was your dad or not, and why.
Yeah, I think it's a huge thing to find a good group of people in your life that you can look up to. I think mentorship is huge. I've had an opportunity in the last couple of years to have people come up to me and say, "Hey, man, I look at you as a mentor." I'm like, "Holy crap!" I guess I've gotten and done something in my life. But
Hmm.
um, as much as I want to continue to give out and be that for somebody else, it comes from what you've done and how you've looked for yourself. So my dad has definitely been a mentor to me. Um, he's he's taught me more by what I've seen than what I've heard from him. And
Hmm.
this is a true statement of life is if you think about it from a child's perspective, children learn more from what they see than what they're taught.
Yeah.
They will emulate you more by the things that you didn't even know that they saw than by the words that they are told that they need to do, right? So a lot of my mentorship, while I have a couple of people in my life that I've visually or verbally told them that I would like for you to be my mentor, a lot of the mentorship that I have is by the way that I'm wired, by watching the people that I believe in and have faith in and see doing things that I feel like I want to do in my own personal life. And I take mentorship through the visual sight of what I'm watching these people do, and it makes me want to be better. And through some of those people, I'll take that time to go ask questions to them. So earlier days of my life, I was always worried about asking people questions. I was like, man, these people don't want to help you. People inherently do like to help other people,
Hmm.
especially people who have done something in their life. They love to talk about it and help somebody else do something with their own personal life. And if they don't, you don't want to talk to them anyways. Right. So my dad's been a great mentor. I had a mentor in finance industry for a little while. He really helped me understand communication um, to customers and how to phrase things in a way where it's very much inclusive and collaborative versus directive, right?
Hmm.
That guy's name was Ed DeMonico. He was great. And then, I'm in an entrepreneurial group called Arte Syndicate, and the two leaders within that organization are incredible leaders and mentors. And again, a lot of it comes from what I've been watching them and learning from them and how they're sharing their knowledge and information to us in that group. That's been awesome for me. I've learned not so much. Well, actually, I've learned a lot of things, but most of what I've really learned is the refinement around culture and core values and what it means to really be a good leader within an organization.
Yeah. Yeah, invaluable. I think, you can't, you make a good point too about, do what you see people doing, right? I mean, because kids, when they can't speak, they learn a lot, in that time just because, they see, they take so much in, and I
Yeah.
think that continues, throughout life. So that's a great point. Now, talk a little bit, if you would, maybe similar type question. You've been a leader of an organization for quite a while. What has that taught you about yourself?
And you're asking some good questions, Jeff. I really appreciate
I
it.
try.
um, You know what? It's refined me in a lot of ways. I've always been a person that will just work through lunch just to get something done, kind of scenario. So grit, fortitude, are things I've always had, but understanding how to channel it as the leader of an organization because there's no one else that I can go to. There's nobody
Right.
that I can go to other than mentors and people I know and friends in other industries, but there's nobody within the company that I can go to. So I've realized how important it is for me to be the light and the example for the people on the team. So I've really refined how to draw fortitude, how to draw grit. And there's one thing that I do every single day. One of the coolest things about this business is we're in a 52,000 square foot building down here in Charlotte. We don't have a cleaning crew. We are the cleaning crew.
Mm.
We clean this place. We vacuum the floors. We clean the bathrooms. We shop clean. We do everything that we possibly can because for two reasons. One, I think it's a waste of money to have to pay somebody to clean up after you. You know, that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of silly in my opinion. But there's also people that run good services for janitorial and cleaning services and so forth. So, I kudos to them. And there are companies that certainly need that kind of help and work. But for me, it's really, I'm a big believer in exercising discipline muscles in the most simple form. So when you need discipline, you can draw on it when you want to. The example I always use here is if you're going to go run a marathon, right? You want to go run a 26.2, you're not just going to go run that marathon. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to work towards building up to how to run that marathon, right? So when you need to get to that marathon and you're on mile 20 and you're like, shit, I'm dead. My legs hurt. My shins are broken. You found the discipline and the grit to push through it. So for me, when it comes to cleanliness, let's just say, and exercising discipline muscles is everywhere I go, whether it's in this building or outside in the public, if there's garbage on the ground, I pick it up and I throw it away for two reasons. One, I think it's the right thing to do. And I hate that people are so dirty and messy that they just throw shit, away without thinking about it should go in a garbage can. But two is the simplest task of picking up a little piece of tape off the ground on the shop floor that everybody else has walked by, but I'm doing it. One is the example of we need to keep this place clean. But two, if I walk by it, I know I can't even get the discipline to do a very simple task. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
exercising my discipline muscle. So when I need to do something that requires a lot of discipline, my muscles have been worked already. Just like running a marathon, you've worked yourself into the readiness to do the big game when you need the big game. So I'm a
Okay.
big believer in discipline and helping really show that and being that example for the team as best I can.
Yeah, I mean, you and I were talking before. I think people that run businesses are very interesting people. I mean, they continue to refine themselves, and that's a good way to put it. I mean, I think learning different things that you maybe need some work on. You mentioned communication earlier. How do you refine that so that everybody understands what your intent was? When you're talking about whatever it is. I think those are all important things. Now, we're kind of running out of time here, so I got one more question for you. Okay.
Yeah,
Um, Think about a new executive or a new entrepreneur. What kind of advice would you give them?
great question. Um, if it's whoever it is, I don't care whether you're a new executive entrepreneur or just general human, is read books. Read books and learn from people about the things that they've done.
Hmm.
There's a book I'm reading right now called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Mm.
And it talks about a person working through the restaurant industry and how they completely changed the game of one restaurant called 11 Madison Park in New York City. And I mean, hospitality wise, as people are sitting there and a waiter walks by and they're thinking about, they hear somebody say, oh man, we got to go pay the meter on the car or something like that. Like that waiter went outside and just paid the meter on that person's car, came back and said, hey, you're good. Don't worry about it. So
Yeah.
doing things that are unreasonable from a hospitality perspective is going that extra mile. This book is incredible. So read books. You will learn a shit ton if you just spend time improving your brain, right? Again, most people want to disconnect. They go to TikTok, they go to Instagram, they go to everything else. Discipline. The right thing to do is to improve yourself. Use that discipline to read, even if it's just 10 pages a day, right? A little bit of improvement every single day is going to be huge for you. So I would encourage people to do that. Move your body. So keep your body moving. Stress, all the things that come from sitting and being lethargic is really bad for you. So I would say move your body as best you can. But from a executive and an entrepreneur perspective, I would look at it a little bit differently. An entrepreneur is somebody starting something brand new. I would say put your feet in, step into the game and say yes before you know what it is. Before you know every little answer to every single question, believe in yourself that you will figure it out.
Mm.
Because the truth is the most skilled entrepreneurs and executives and people in their lives have developed the art of the pivot. And I say it's the art of the pivot because whoever really put a plan together and it went 100% perfect? Rarely,
Never.
right? You always have to pivot a little bit. It's like, it could be, hey, this person got sick for 3 days. I got to get this guy over here to finish this job and move over there. And it's those are the things when you step back and you look at the success of the project or the success of the sports team winning the championship or the lawyer, winning the case. They're great events, but the things you remember the most are what you did in the weeds, right?
Hmm.
It's the two-a-days or something like that when you're thinking about building up towards that championship game, or the late nights for the lawyer ordering Chinese food, reading through bookcase. Those are the things that are vivid that they remember, and it's not as much as the win that you're going to remember. So realize that the art of the pivot is crucial, and believe in yourself. And that comes from screwing shit up. And if you screw something up, it's okay. Just make sure you learn that everything you do in life has a lesson that you need to learn. You just need to figure out what that lesson is. For an executive coming into a company, so somebody a little bit more seasoned, especially, actually, it applies to every industry. What I would say is if you're new to the business and you've not done what that business specifically has done, take time to learn every single task within that organization at a minimum of the people that you're in charge of. Spend time with every single human and ask them day by day, what is the task you have to do? How do you actually do it? And do the work. Because if that person leaves their role and they become something in a different role and you get a new person in, you're going to be a much better guide for them in how to teach them the role that they are now taking on. It's more, hey, I need you to do this versus, hey, I need you to do this. These are the resources, these are the locations, and these are the people that you can call. This person's a way better guide, for that leader or for that new person that's coming in. So fortunately for me, the reason I got here leading this team and the reason it works so well is every single job throughout the company I've done. So when I'm asking somebody that I need them to weld together pipe or I need them to check a piece of equipment out, done all those tasks. So I know what they're going through. So it's not like, hey, get this done in an hour. It's like, hey, this is going to take you 3 days. Let me know when you're completed and let me know where I can help you and get you the right resources and stuff. So understanding the individual tasks as a new executive coming into a company is crucial. Game
Hmm.
changer.
Yeah, yeah, you get the respect of the people also when you understand what they're doing, right? Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all good advice. Continuous learner, 100% agree with that. That never ends. I think in any job you have, let alone an executive position. So,
Yeah.
Stefan, I think we could probably talk for a couple more hours. I really enjoyed this. You have a very interesting story. Welcome to North Carolina. I know it sounds
Thank
like
you.
you're going to make a nice impact for the people that work for you and your customers in the state of North Carolina. So welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun, and I can't believe an hour's gone by already. Truly, there's so many more things I feel like I could talk about. And if you want to ever do a repeat, we could talk about things like culture and core values and building all those kinds of things. Or maybe you and I, like you said, we just go grab a cup of coffee and we finish this great conversation because it's been fun, Jeff.
Yeah, or maybe we do both. So yeah, I'd enjoy that. So listen, thank you for joining me today. Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff.